Hi, hello, and if you're new to the channel, welcome, and if you've been here before, welcome back. Now, if you've watched any of my recent engine woes videos, I think there's been 3 or 4 of them now, you will know that we had a fuel problem on board the Grey Wagtail. The fuel in some way had managed to gum up the fuel injector pump on the engine. Now that means that there might be something wrong with the fuel. There may be a problem there. There may be sort of molecules are formed in there that are sticky and are gumming up the works, or it could be that I've got diesel bug. Either way, it's bad news. Now, the main fuel tank is underneath the boatsman's cabin here. We've already tried to polish the fuel, but we couldn't get the pipes into it. The latest idea is to cut a hole in the top of the tank so we can gain access that way to clean it out and then reseal it in place with sort of fire resistant sealant and a metal plate and a load of bolts over the top. Now, according to the sort of boat safety certificate people, that should be okay, but I'm going to check that out a little more closely or fully in the near future. Now, when we changed the fuel filter on the engine, there was no problems. There was no gunk in it. There was no obvious sort of fouling of that filter. It looked perfectly clean. It looked almost new, in fact. Now, there is another filter down here, which is a sort of pre-engine sedimentation filter. Now, I must admit, I've never looked at that filter or have anything to do with it because, well, there's nothing in the instruction book that I've got. I've got a big, thick instruction book, and it doesn't seem to get a mention in there. Or that's what I thought. Last night I went through that book very, very closely and I found one mention of the sedimentation filter in one diagram, just a little circle labelled sediment, I think it said. And then there were a couple of receipts, or at least one receipt I found for replacement of the filter in the actual sedimentation filter. So what I'm going to do today is have a look at that sedimentation filter to see if there's a build-up of gunk in it, to see if the filter's okay, and replace it if need be. I think I've got the right part for it, so fingers crossed with that. Now, as I said, I haven't looked at this since I've had the boat. There was nothing in the sort of general running of the boat to say that I should. Apparently I should be looking at it quite regularly and draining water off the bottom, so my bad. I haven't been doing that. I just didn't know it was there. So let's go and have a look at the sedimentation filter and see what's going on. So this is the rather sort of thick and what I thought was comprehensive book that I got with the boat. It's got building specs in it about the different things that are installed, all kinds of useful information in here. And the only information I can find on Sedimenter is on this page, and it's labelled just there. It just says Sedimenter. There's no other information anywhere in this book as far as I can see. There is a receipt for filters for the Sedimenter, but there's no filters on it, so I don't know what happened there. Anyway, that's the only information I can find. There's nothing about draining it or looking at it or changing filters in it, and I can't find any record of filters ever being changed other than, as I said, that one receipt. I do like the fact that it's relatively easy to gain access to everything on the Grey Wagtail, but I always do struggle as to what to do with this board. It always seems to get in the way. Anyway, that's how you access the fuel tank. The sedimentation filter is just below this step, and this step can always be difficult to remove in winter as it swells due to the increase in humidity on board, despite my efforts to try and keep the boat dry. So this is the fuel tank on the Grey Wagtail. There's no way of getting into it other than the fuel inlet pipe, which is over to the left of this shot, or the breather tube, which is over to the right. So the idea here is that a hatch is sort of cut in the top to give access. I'm kind of not in favour of that, I must admit, but maybe the only thing I can do. We'll have to see. Okay, so this is the separator in question here. So what I'm going to do first is turn off the fuel, just in case. I mean, I don't think it's going to come whizzing out of there, but you never know. If I get the bottom off here, last thing I want to do is fill up down here with diesel. And it does explain to me why this is in here. I've often wondered why this was in here. And what I think this is to drain this separator, because I should have been releasing a nut down here that you can see to drain off any sort of excess water that accumulated in there every so often, or rubbish or stuff. But anyway, that fits under there. Now this should be on here hand tight, and of course it isn't. I can't shift that. Luckily I've got a filter wrench thingy, so let's put that on. Okay, give me a bit more leverage. Okay, that's on. No. Wow, that is only supposed to be on there hand tight. I think the instructions sort of said hand tight and a nip. Well, that's interesting. I can't get it off. Well, that's me sort of scuppered on that one, as I can't actually unscrew it. A bit of a blow. Okay, so it looks like a classic case of RTFM. In other words, I was reading the wrong manual. The ones I was reading was for a sort of plastic or acrylic bowl, or even glass bowl down the bottom here. This one's got a solid metal bowl. Those ones seem to undo up hand tight. This one uses a nut on the top. It's got a sort of solid aluminium type bowl down here, and I need to release this nut up here. So let's give it a go. Yep, that's working. That's released that lower bowl. So let's undo this. Oh, pull that out. Put it to one side so I don't lose it later. And let's, oh, lot of diesel. Let's drop this bowl down. Yep, and the diesel in there is a little bit on the muckier side. What I drained off yesterday. Not too many lumpy bits in it, and actually I was expecting a filter in there. There is no filter. That's odd. I'm sure there was supposed to have been a filter in there. That's very peculiar. Oh, I don't know about that. That's odd. Very odd indeed. Anyway, I'm going to give this a clean out now. And I've got a filter here, which I've got for what I thought was this. So I will see if that is the correct filter and that is what it actually is needed. Okay, so a quick back and read of the manual. I'm pretty sure that I did buy the right filter, this Fleetguard FF167, which should sit on top of there. And then this bolt should pass through the top of the separator housing down and tighten the whole thing up, obviously with a couple of sort of seals, gaskets around the place, and I'm pretty sure that that's right. However, that bolt is nowhere near long enough to go all the way through the top of the pump housing, through this and then into that. So I don't know what's going on here. I was expecting a filter in here. I've cleaned this out now with a bit of fresh diesel, best that I sort of can. A little bit of sort of gunk in the bottom left. I was expecting a filter to be sitting in here like I have on the Webasto filter system, but there isn't. So when I received this, I was quite surprised how big it was, and I thought, well, okay, yeah, maybe I'm sort of getting things wrong here, maybe, but that does appear to be the right filter, and it fits nicely on the bottom of the separator. So I'll have to look into getting a longer bolt, I guess. Anyway, now I've got to put it all back together and bleed the system out so that I can start the engine. There's my washer, my gasket. So I just need to hold that in place underneath. Get this bolt started. Should go together quite, yeah. That's in place. I'll just tie that up. should do it. Okay, so fuel back on. Let's give it a quick bleed. Let's just undo this here. Okay, so that's the bleed screw undone. And now, never find this lever under here. Where's it gone? Oh, there it is. Okay, air coming through. Oh, tighten it up now. There we go. That's all the air out. Yep. Bit of a gusher there. Somebody commented in the blog the other week I have a clean engine. If I continue with my lack of mechanical skills like this, we're not going to have a clean engine for much longer. Get that diesel off of there. Okay, let's tighten that up. Good, that's that tight. Next thing to do is go and start the engine. So, coolant check, fine. Oil check. Fine. Looking a bit black, need of a change. All good. Right, the master switch thingy, output selector, around to both. And the last thing I need to do is check, well, take off the cover for the exhaust. Oh Christ. Gusher. I hadn't done up that bleed enough. God. Gee, these are everywhere. Well, at least I know the system's bled. It's bled all over the floor. Wow, I thought I'd done that up tight enough. There we go, let's try that. I'm always wary of doing up bolts too tight on things after an experience of when I was working with my Triumph Dolomite way back in the 80s. I overdid a bolt and sheared it, caused me no end of problems. Right, let's try that again. Oh, that's still leaking. Wow. Just how tight has that got to be on there? That washer always seems too large for that job. Right, let's try that. See see if that's got it. Gonna need a more blue towel at this rate. Success. Okay, I don't know if you can hear me above the engine, but no sign of leaks. It's dry down at the separator, and it's no longer leaking from the fuel valve, from the fuel filter bleed. As part of my engine test, I also found a leak on one of the injector pipes, which I tightened. I also decided to have a look at the diesel in the tanks. Using a small pump, I was able to take a sample of diesel from the back tank. I put a clear hose right down to the bottom of the tank and then pumped up a sample of the diesel. And it looked okay. There were a few little lumps in it, but nothing too much. It was clear and pretty good. Getting a diesel sample from the main tank, the tank that provides diesel for the engine, is a little bit more tricky. There's a very long filler hose on it, so I needed a long clear piece of hose to go down into it, and it was tricky to get the hose right down into the tank, which made me realise that cleaning it via this route is going to be a bit tricky because you really can't get in there. Anyway, after a bit of trial and error, I did manage to get a sample of the diesel from the tank. As I said, it was not easy. Trying to get that hose right down into the tank and into the diesel was very, very tricky. And then, of course, I kept knocking over the jam jar, which didn't help. Finally, after 2 or 3 goes, success, I managed to draw diesel up out of the tank. Now, as you can see, the diesel out of this tank wasn't as clear as the diesel from the back tank. And also, as I was pumping up, I noticed some small black lumps and debris coming up in the tube. I then left the diesel for 24 hours to settle and to see if anything grew. So, a quick update on the diesel. Hopefully you can see this. This is the diesel from the sort of back tank under the stern. That's been in there for 24 hours now. Nothing happening. No, well, no, a little bit of sediment there. Did you just see it come up? So it looks like there is a bit of diesel bug in there. Which is a bit of a... Yeah, there is some stuff that's come up. That wasn't in there yesterday, so maybe that's grown overnight. And this is the material from the main and this is the material from the main fuel tank. And again, yep, there's stuff that seems to have grown in there overnight. So that's telling me I think I got diesel bug in there. It's either sedimented out or has grown. But I'll leave this on the boat and see how it does over the next sort of few days to a week or more. Well, there you go, more trials and tribulations of working on my narrowboat engine. So, bit of a surprise there, the separator filter, once I'd worked out how to get it apart, basically there's no filter in it. I was expecting a sort of Webasto type filter, which you would have seen in an earlier video where I cleaned the filter for the Webasto heater on board. I was expecting a sort of metal insert, but it appears there should be a canister, which explains why the thing that I bought for it looks like it does, because I couldn't work out how that was going to go inside that container, but I need a longer bolt if I'm going to have that on there. So that's a bit of a mystery as to what's going on there. You saw I had a bit of a gusher on the bleed valve there. I've sorted that out. It's no longer leaking, and I've also checked the separator and that's no longer leaking, so that's good. I also found during my engine test a small leak on one of the lines into an injector. I've tightened that up and I can now confirm that's not leaking, so fantastic. So the fuel saga sort of continues, I guess, because I've still got this sort of dirty fuel. There's a little bit of sediment in the filter system, the separator down here, but not a huge amount. I was expecting to see tons of rubbish in there, but there was hardly anything came out of that at all. When I drained it, nothing much came out of it. And in the bottom of the bowl, yes, there was a bit of gunk, but not that much. So I don't think, well, evidence from the other day where I took a sample from the tank suggests I've got diesel bug because there's some small black bits floating in it, but it doesn't seem to be down in the separator here or in the fuel filter when that was changed on the engine. So I don't know what's going on there. I've still got my 2 samples, which I'm going to sort of leave sitting around to see if anything happens. As you saw, after 24 hours, there was really no change in them. They were still both sort of the same, basically. The one from the back tank was clear. The one from the tank underneath the boatsman's cabin here had still cloudy sort of look to it. Not excessive, but a little bit of cloudiness to it, so I don't know. I'm still very much against cutting a hole in the top of the tank. Anyway, if you found this interesting, alarming, informative, please don't forget to give it a big like, a big thumbs up, and please don't forget to leave a comment about what I'm doing wrong or what I'm doing right or what I should be doing or what I haven't done yet. So thanks very much for watching for this long. On the screen now you'll see a QR code which, if you scan it, will take you through to a free newsletter about the Grey Wagtail. There's also a link to it in the description below, and please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.